Hello everyone, my name is Wang, a PhD student from Tsinghua University. Sorry that my college didn't get their visa, so today I'm going to talk about this topic on behalf of my college, Xiang Li and Chuhan Wang. So in this talk, TuDoor attack, systematically exploring logic vulnerabilities in DNS response processing with malformed packets. We find new sets of DNS-based attacks, which we named TuDoor. Before the details, for the attack impact, our TuDoor attack could poison arbitrary domains like .com and .net within just 1 second. In following, I will introduce how it works. To start with, in today's internet communication ecosystem, the DNS play an important role translating domain names to IP addresses. It actually provides a solid basis for multiple applications and services like web application and CDN system. According to the Versailles State, more than 350 million domain names have been registered until now. So what is DNS? DNS is constructed in a hierarchical namespace. As shown on the right, the different authoritative zones maintaining the DNS record. From the top is the root and the TLD, and finally the SLD. After the domain registration, a new branch is created and the zone is delegated. There are multiple resolver rules such as forwarder and recursive. And the iterative resolution process works in the client-server style. So how does the DNS resolution works? Before the resolution, a domain, example.com, is registered. You can say that. The DNS client begins by sending a query, and the configured forwarder just transmits the query to its upstream server. Then the recursive resolver does the iterative process with different authoritative servers until it gets a valid response. The response will be cached by all the resolvers. As for a DNS packet, two fields are used to match the query and the response, the source port and the TSID. You can see that all of them have a 16-bit space, so there are 32-bit space to indicate a query. Since the DNS is the cornerstone of the internet, enabling multiple critical services and applications, attackers have long tried to manipulate its response for hijacking via cache poisoning attack. So what is DNS cache poisoning? Because DNS is primarily over UDP, attacker wants to inject forged answer into the resolver's cache, so that when the victim queries the poisoned domain name, it will point to the result controlled by the attacker. To inject forged answer, there are two ways: the on-pass way and the off-pass way. The on-pass attacker can observe the network link and return response directly, while the off-pass attacker needs to guess the TSID and the source port and this identification fields. And DNS cache poisoning is just like a cat and mouse game. After some attack disclosures, new attacks have been continuously developed as the timeline goes. So before introducing our attack, let's retrospect some legacy attacks on the timeline. Here, I will first present the famous on-pass cache-perf attack. Cache-perf wants to inject the forged response from the on-pass on his own authoritative server. He can observe identification fields. Cache-perf query the target resolver for his domain, alternate.com, and return the response from his own authoritative server. Besides, you can see that the forged internet DNS record are included in the response that's controlled by the attacker. Then the resolver will trust the fake internet DNS record and use it for future queries, which is hijacked. The root cause is that the lack of verification for the DNS response. So to mitigate the cache-perf attack, bailiwick tracking is proposed. which means that only answer from the same domain as the request name are acceptable. For instance, when you dig example.com, the example.com is in Bailiwick, while mybank.com is out of Bailiwick, so that the mybank.com will be removed from the response and won't be cached in the DNS system. So after the cache-perf attack, Bailiwick checking is widely implemented, and on-pass DNS cache poisoning seems impossible. The second one is the famous all-pass Kaminsky attack. Kaminsky tried to inject forged response with birthday paradox. After the target resolvers sends out a query, the attacker sends multiple forged DNS response to it before the legal response, you can see. So in this case, each response have a different TS ID, but with the fixed port number. So if the TS ID is matching, the attack will succeed. Otherwise, the attacker can start the attack again with another subdomains and does the same work. Since the TS ID only have 16 bits, the attack will be successful after several tries. To mitigate the Kaminsky attack, source port randomization is added to increase identification field guessing entropy. Totally, the guessing space now is 32 bits and hard to buttress since there are over 4 billion possibilities. So after Kaminsky attack, source port randomization is widely adopted, and the all-pass cache poisoning seems impossible to conduct. So the third one is the fragmentation-based attack. Here is IP packet for DNS query. You can see that there are two key fields to validate this DNS require, the source port and the TS ID. So as we know, that the IP packet can be fragmented when the packet is too large. Like we can divide them into the fragment 1 and the fragment 2. You can see that the attacker can try to inject forged response by exporting the second fragmentation without checking, because there are no validation field in the second fragment. But in this case, the attacker needs to guess the IP ID value to make sure that the fragment 1 and the fragment 2 will be resembled at the client side as a legal IP packet. But we can say the IP ID only have a 16-bit space, so it's easy for the attacker to brute force. So to fragmentation-based attack, the attacker can continuously spoof the second fragmentation to the target recursive resolver. After the target resolver sends out a query that the attacker forced the fragmentation on the authoritative server and send the forged fragment 2 to the resolver. Then the target resolver will resemble the fragment 1 and fragment 2, so the raw response will be cached accidentally. To mitigate fragmentation attack, IP-ID randomization is added to increase the identification field guessing entropy. Besides, restricting fragmentation and adding new validation fields works like applying encoding weight to each resource records works. So after the fragmentation-based attack, IP-ID randomization is widely adopted, and now it's difficult to conduct. However, our lab found by increasing the packet size with same-name chains, fragmentation-based attack can still work. Also, it's not easy to trigger fragmentation for a normal response. We can increasing the packet size with our own control domains by creating same-name chains. As the figure on the left, we can create a same-name chains to increase the packet size and trigger the fragmentation. And the red part in the right figure is the second fragmentation with spoof to poison the victim.com, which points to attacker's controlled IP address. The fourth one is the famous set DNS attack. by using Linux kernel side channel, attacker could use the global ICMP rate limit counter to expose the in-use ports. For example, if the global count is 15, the attacker sends the 15 UDP probes packet and then sends the verification packet to known unreachable port. So if there are no opening ports in the previous guessing ports, the attacker will not receive an ICMP packet. Otherwise, there will be an ICMP packet, so that the attacker can leverage this information to indicate the in-use ports. Then, to attack the target resolver, the attacker mutes the authoritative server first. After the target resolver sends out a query, the attacker probes the source ports using this side channel tactics and brute force the TS ID. So when the TS ID is matching, the attack succeeds. To mitigate the set DNS attack, ICMP global rate limit counter randomization is implemented by the Linux kernel. Besides, reducing domain resolution, like adding timeout and DNSSEC works. So after 26 years, does the bailiwick tracking working as the design of fixing the catch perf attack? The answer is no. MaginotDNS breaks the guarantee with a new powerful cache poisoning vulnerabilities. MaginotDNS explores bailiwick tracking vulnerabilities to inject response into the forwarder's cache shared with the recursive. So in this figure, after the target resolver sends out the query will be forwarded to the authoritative server or upstream server. And the attacker sends a forged DNS response before the legal response. Then all the future response will be hijacked, including the TLD domains, the .com domain. So the root cause is that the forwarding DNS servers is not strictly follow the bailiwick tracking, and the forwarding server and the recursive server are shared with the global DNS cache. So the attacker can poison the cache of forwarder's DNS server, so they can still poison the recursive DNS cache. To mitigate the MaginotDNS attack, developers should align the bailiwick tracking logic for both forwarder and the recursive DNS server. This figure shows the vulnerable process logic in the DNS software. So MaginotDNS actually received widely impact from the world, including government CERT report and over 60 media coverage. It has been talked in the Black Hat USA 2023. Now, we wonder why this new DNS cache poisoning attack is still possible after researchers and vendors did a lot of work. We found that the DNS processing logic have never been studied throughoutly. So it's necessary to provide a systematic analysis of the DNS response processing logic and expose all the potential threats. That's what we did in this paper and what we found. So after doing this, we found a new DNS cache poisoning in this timeline. Now let me introduce the TuDoor attack. TuDoor attack is proposed by our NISL lab. It's a new set of powerful DNS-related attack, including DNS cache poisoning, denial of service, and resource consuming. Among them, TuDoor can poison vulnerable resolvers with just in 1 second. Because we explored vulnerabilities of the DNS response processing logic, like passing the convent response door in the Great War. We call it TuDoor attack. By exploring the convent side channel vulnerabilities in DNS response processing logic compared to the previous work, the attacker just needs to attack once with a successful rate of 100%. The threat model is showed here. Our attack target including all the resolvers, including the recursive and the forward server. When attacking, first, we identify the target resolver. Second, we trigger the different vulnerabilities. And lastly, we conduct the attack. To find these vulnerabilities, we conduct a comprehensive analysis of the DNS response processing logic. We construct processing logic state transition for 28 DNS software, including recursive, forwarder, stub, and programming libraries, and conclude a general processing logic, which is showed below. You can see that we defined the whole DNS processing logic into 13 states. And all software will return the receiving response state to receive a promising response. So based on the basic logic, we found many implementations are vulnerable to the special packet processing state. The red line shows the vulnerable state transition that can be leveraged by the attackers as the side channels. We just list part of them here. So if you're interested, you can check our paper for more detail. For example, for Microsoft DNS, under normal situation, in state 5, which is processing header state, it should wait a response packet to process the record. However, if receiving a new DNS query packet when waiting for the response, it will accept this new query and start new resolution for any domains, which leak the source port for the DNS cache poisoning. In summary, we actually found 24 DNS software are vulnerable to cache poisoning, denial service, resource consuming, including the bind and the unbound. Besides, 18 public DNS services are vulnerable to cache poisoning and denial of service, such as the OpenDNS and the Cloudflare. We proposed 3 attacks by exploiting the TuDoor vulnerabilities, including the cache poisoning, denial of service, and the resource consuming. Here I will introduce the cache poisoning attack ways. So the attack steps are shown on the right. The attacker sends a query like victim.com to the victim resolvers, which is Microsoft DNS. And in the step 2, the victim resolver issued an outgoing query for the victim to its named services with the source port, port RH, and the TSID. As the attacker doesn't know the port RH and the TSID, so the main goal is for attackers to guess the correct port RH and the TSID so that they can use these 2 informations to create a fake response that poison the DNS servers. So in the step 3, the attacker tries to probe all source ports of the victim resolvers from the port RS to port RE and locate the in-use one. To achieve this, the attacker sends probing packets to all source ports by spoofing the IP address of IPv, which is relatively easy. So each probing packet is a DNS query that contains a queue name under the attacker's domain, attack.com, while each queue name is encoded with the target probing ports of the victim resolver. So for example, to probe port 2001, the queue name should be 2001.attacker.com. Since there are only about 2,500 port numbers are used by the Microsoft DNS, it's actually reduced amount of probing packets. After receiving all the probing packets, Microsoft DNS, as we mentioned before, only accepted the one that hit the correct source port, which is the port RH, and issued a new query for its queue name, port RH attacker.com, to the named services of the attacker's server. So on the attacker's server, named server, the attacker could observe a new query for the port RH attack.com and extract the source port from the queue name. Then the attacker can locate the source port and start fake response inject path. You can see in the step 6, after obtaining the correct source port, which is port RH, the attacker tries to guess the correct TS ID. This part is relatively easy since the attacker could just brute force all the TS ID value, which is only have 16 bits space. The attacker then sends the fake response packet to the source port, port RH, of the victim resolver by spoofing the IPv earlier than the legal response. So by exploring this one new side channel vulnerabilities, attacker could expose the source port within just 1 second and with only 65,000 packets. The vulnerabilities here is after the resolver sends out a query, it will accept the query in that in-use port, which leaked the source port information for the attacker. So after 20 experiments, the average attack time is only less than 0.5 seconds, which is 200 to 1,000 times faster than the prior attacks. With the design probing policies, use Xmaps, we find that there are 423,000 resolvers are vulnerable to the TuDoor attacks. And the Xmap is a fast network scanner designed for performing internet-wide IPv6 and IPv4 network researching scan. Xmap has implemented multiple DNS probing modules and has supported many researchers' projects. So feel free to try it on the GitHub. Now let me show you the demo video. First, we access normal website and take dhl.com as an example. We show its website on both our PC and our phone. So it worked well. Second, we start the attack program. And the output log shows that it only costs less than 1 second to carry out the attack successfully. Third, we open the DHL website again on our phone. And the page shows it was hacked. So great, the TuDoor attack succeeded. Thank you. So as vulnerabilities disclosures were reported to all affected vendors, and the TuDoor is confirmed by all affected software. 33 CV numbers assigned. We stress that standardize the DNS response processing logic to consider corner processing cases that will be leveraged by the attacker to use as a side channel. Specifically, resolver should await a time window for promising normal response and ignore queries sent to non-15.3 ports. We also release our online tool to detect vulnerable resolvers, which is TuDoor.net. Feel free to try it. So to sum up, the DNS RFC and the specification are not clear to provide the deterministic definition for each operation, hence leaving a large attack window for ambiguous implementation. And we should check the RFC essential specification. Second, the DNS implementation are not consistent across software, even for identical client queries. This inconsistence is likely to conceal possible risk, which should be thoroughly researched and evaluated. Finally, the original DNS mechanism is insufficient to defend against several types of attack. To improve it, we should propose new patches or redesign some structures. So this is all my share today. Thank you for your attention. For more detail, you can scan the QR code and contact with the first author, Xiang Li. Thank you.